So these are my unpopular opinions about living in the UK from an American who has lived here for 2.5 years. Number one, British politeness is just emotional repression with a smile. Look, I get the British culture. I enjoy the British culture. I love the British culture and I love living here in the UK. But the obsession with manners can sometimes get a little bit overwhelming. I have been privy to some of the British etiquette when it comes to saying you're sorry when someone bumps into you, or when you're like me and you fall into a bush and you apologize to the bush. It is charming until it becomes a little bit obsessive. British people tend to bottle things up behind 6 layers of passive aggressive sarcasm, let it simmer for a couple of weeks, have a cup of tea, and then release it in the form of a blunt email that starts with, "Hey there, just wondering if you had a chance to see my previous message." Spoiler alert though, they did see it. They're just pretending not to hate you until it's socially acceptable, basically, for them to cut you off completely. But I do think that it is a way that British people tend to just kind of keep things at a level pace with less tension and to avoid confrontation. But I don't know that it's the healthiest way for British people to deal with their feelings or things that are happening in their life. Number two, being too enthusiastic is basically a crime here. So I'm an American and I grew up in America, spent most of my adulthood in America, and I am overall a genuinely happy and optimistic person. So when I moved here, I was approaching life here in Great Britain as the same. And I was smiling a lot and talking to strangers, talking with my hands, getting really animated and excited, using phrases like, "That's awesome," and "This is so exciting," and "How amazing." And you should see some of the looks that I got from locals. You'd think I just stripped naked and started quoting Tony Robbins in the middle of a Tesco or something. It was really, really weird. Over here in the UK, if you're not speaking in a monotone and casually downplaying every experience, you're instantly suspicious, and people will definitely think twice about trusting you with anything. Now, of course, once you get comfortable with someone, you get to know them a little bit better, you can let your guard down a little bit and they understand, oh, it's just a cultural thing, etc. But their initial response will definitely be one of trepidation and just kind of keeping you at bay until they know exactly what's happening here. It's kind of disheartening as an American because, God forbid, you show any visible signs of ambition or joy. If you say something like, "Hey, I'm really proud of what you've done this year," and suddenly the British person's like, "Okay, calm down, Elon Musk. I mean, don't go crazy and show us your stomach." Number three, sarcasm is more than just wit here in the UK. It's actually a defense mechanism. So sarcasm is obviously something that crosses the pond and breaks cultural barriers. However, British people do love to claim the sarcasm crown. And to be honest, after living here for 2.5 years, I definitely can attest to the fact that they are well more sarcastic and use it in many different ways than Americans do. However, I believe that half the time that they're using sarcasm, it's more of a way to avoid a situation or avoid having to be vulnerable in that situation. If you say something nice and they respond with a joke about death or having a cup of tea, that's usually a British norm. And it's a way for them to kind of be like, "Yeah, I'm embarrassed that you complimented me. So please, can we just move on now?" And that's just something that, you have to get used to when you're trying to communicate with British people. They pretty much shy away from compliments like it's a radioactive substance here. I once said, "You look great today," to somebody, and the reply was, "What, compared to my usual Gremlin form?" And I was like, "No, I was just saying, hey, I don't know if you did anything different, but hey, you look vibrant, you look special. I was trying to be nice." Just take the freaking compliment. It's not a trap. And I know that with the accent, you might consider that Yanks are trying to be a little bit nefarious in some way, but it's not always, I promise. We're just trying to be nice sometimes. And we don't mean it in a fake way either. We are trying to be genuinely nice and complimentary to you. So please, please give us a break. Number four. So the national sport in Britain seems to be suffering in silence. I really feel like a British person could be dying of hypothermia in the middle of a train station, and you would still hear someone say, "I'm all right, just a bit chilly, but it's fine." Like, If it's not fine, it's not fine. You're like turning blue, your teeth are let's get you somewhere warm. I know it's this way of like deflecting and not being such a burden on people and, keep calm and carry on, that whole attitude. But I think sometimes, although admirable, this practice is a little bit of like emotional constipation. Like, no one says how they're really feeling until they're like 3 pints deep and crying in Witherspoons. Just admit that you need help and ask for help. If you expect us as foreigners to do that, I don't know. I just think that you probably should take a little bit of your own advice on that. Number 5. Small talk can be a full-time job with a British person, especially if you've had really significant changes in the weather or several weather patterns in a day, which is definitely not unheard of here in England anyway. Every conversation pretty much starts with either traffic or a weather report. And I'm not joking. I mean, like every single one. Bit muggy today, isn't it? Yeah, it's a bit wet out yesterday and for the next 900 years. Like, I mean, yeah, it's raining. You get wet when it rains and it gets hot in the summer. Like, for me personally, I'm just not a small talk person. And I know we do small talk and the hi, how are you, or whatever. It even annoyed me in America, but they definitely take it to a different level here in the UK, I feel like. And for me personally, like I was saying, it's just something that I don't really like anyway. I'm not a small talk person. Let's just get to it. It's fine. I don't judge your character based on whether or not you're nice to me or say good morning or anything like that. I judge your character based on who you are and what you bring to the table. Directness also, I think, comes into play here when it comes to small talk. People use small talk as a way to not be direct and avoid or try to soften blows rather than just being blunt and getting right to the point. You could see it's kind of a pain point for me. Celebrating yourself feels kind of illegal here in the UK. In America, we are all about touting our own horn. Right. That's not right. Tooting our own horn, blowing our own horn. I don't know which one sounds less crass. Anyway, you say things like, I'm proud of myself. Oh, I'm really glad I did that. I'm quite happy with myself, that kind of thing. That's totally normal in America. Most people want to express that they're proud of themselves or that they've accomplished something and they're excited about that. And a lot of times it's even encouraged. Sometimes people take it a little too extreme and become into that bragging situation. But overall, most people are just trying to make sure they're getting noticed because it's very hard for you to be noticed for good things and good deeds in the US. In the UK, however, similar actions are met with stunned silence, like you just admitted you were drowning puppies and kittens. Even the most modest self-affirmation gets a little bit like uncomfortable with British people. They'll just be like, oh, look at you. How confident are you? Again, it's a cultural thing, yes, but I feel like it's something that the British can probably tone down a little bit and maybe just, feel a little bit better about touting their good deeds and fighting for themselves a little bit more. I don't want to tear anybody down. I want to build people up. I reward confidence as long as it's backed up with action and proof. And I don't want to dumb down my confidence just because it might make you feel a little uncomfortable. So that is something that is another pain point for me here living in the UK. I also feel like bantery friendships are secretly toxic. British friendships are really much more solid overall as compared to American friendships. Friendships in the United States tend to be a little bit more fake, built on not a whole lot of substance, just maybe a similar belief in one thing, or maybe you feel like obligatory over for some reason because you've known them a long time or something like that. But British friendships tend to be a little bit more substantive, and it takes a while for British people to warm up and be your friend, but once they get there, you're pretty much there for a long time. It takes a while for that to dissipate. But sometimes it kind of feels like a prolonged insult battle. If you dare to say, hey, that joke kind of hurt my feelings, and you're kind of, at least I am, kind of looked at it as like, oh, you're just being American. Just stop being oversensitive and get over it. I have no problem admitting my faults or admitting, if maybe to look at all of my shortcomings and make fun of myself. I have no problem with that. And I love a good roast. And the British banter can be extremely hilarious because not many people take themselves seriously. But I do feel like there is a point where I need to know you don't actually hate me under all of that deadpan sarcasm. And maybe that is just an American sensibility, but for me, I feel like sometimes I'm just trauma bonding with someone who likes to call me a donkey every other day. Again, I don't mind laughing at myself, but I do feel like sometimes British people can take it a little too far and don't realize that you're actually being hurtful to the other person rather than just having a good roast or having a good bit of banter. Nobody ever says what they mean here. This is the biggest one for me. I am a very direct person, even for American standards. So when someone tells me you must come over sometime, I take that as an invitation. So I'm going to reach out to you and see if we can get together. It doesn't, for me, mean I hope I never see you outside of this interaction again. I've been burned by this so many times because my instinct is to assume we struck a chord. Let's see if this can be a friendship. Let's see if this is, something that we can build on. And I'm always open to expanding my circle for people. And I feel like sometimes I get cut down really, really quickly because I will take someone at their word when they say, "Oh, that's interesting," thinking they enjoy my idea, but actually they disagree with me and they're just too polite to argue or say so directly. So it's kind of like the opposite of when you're friends with someone. When you're just getting to know someone, they're overly polite to the point where you're like, you don't know if they even give a shit at all. Whereas if you're a friend with someone for a long time, they're overly sarcastic and they're overly roasting you. And so you don't know if they give a shit. Basically, you just never know if a British person really cares about you. And I do feel like I have to decode every sentence. And I still, to this day, after 2.5 years, even with people that I know pretty well, have to ask, are you just being are you being serious? Or are you just making fun of me? Or what's the friggin' war code that I've got to figure out? So as an American living here in the UK, it's just a wild ride. You're constantly surrounded by banter, you're constantly surrounded by sarcasm, and you're constantly wondering if people really mean what they say. For me, I am learning as I continue in this journey, and the biggest things that I've learned so far is enthusiasm is suspect, so use it sparingly and in very specific instances. Politeness can be weaponized, so be careful. And if you want to try to schedule plans without at least 2 weeks of vague text exchanges first, you're probably not going to get anywhere. But still, I love living here in the UK and I wouldn't trade it for the world. As an American, I'm always going to struggle with some of these things and have issues with some of these things, but someone has to say it out loud before we all emotionally combust. It's okay to say that you need help, and it's okay to say what you actually mean. I know these are somewhat unpopular views, but for me, they're true. And this point of view is about real life. So, in my opinion, this is what it's really like to be an American immigrant here in the UK.